Joan Marie Verba is an artistic author, publisher, and web developer with a bachelor's degree in physics. An experienced writer, she is the author of fiction and nonfiction books. She's a member of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America and the International Association of Media Tie-In Writers. Joan Marie, take it away.
Thank you. I'm reading today from Summoned by Dragons, which I expect to be published in August or September. The premise is that dragons have been coming from their world to Earth since the late 1800s to lay their eggs. The eggs hatch, the dragons grow up here, and then go to the dragon world about age 15. Rhea grew up with a dragon. The dragon, Zinnia, comes back and asks Rhea to help the dragons. They have been coming to Earth because an entity the dragons call the Terror has been eating their eggs. The dragons want Rhea's help to deal with the Terror. Rhea and her boyfriend Nick go to the dragon world to help. A veterinarian, Dan, wants to go with them, but Rhea and Nick want to check out the dragon world first to see if humans can live there. It turns out that humans can, but only if a dragon helps them, because a dragon world is filled with dangers. I'm starting the story when Rhea and Nick go back to Earth to get Dan. He's being paired with a dragon called Evan, a shy, awkward dragon who is nonetheless eager to help. They've gathered Dan's personal items and veterinary equipment and are ready for Zinnia to take them back to the dragon world. Rhea said, "One more thing. You're going to be paired with Evan." "Mother and father have talked to him," Zinnia said. "They told him to do as you say." "You can be sure of that," Rhea said. "He follows instructions to the letter. Zinnia's parents will intervene if he doesn't, but I don't doubt he'll be willing to cooperate." "He's actually very nervous about your arrival," Nick said, asking where to sit, what to say, how to look. He wants to make the best possible impression. "We told him to simply sit to one side and wait for you to appear with us," Zinnia added. "I think I can handle that," Dan said. Dan, Rhea, and Nick took hold of one of Zinnia's back ridges. The campus disappeared. It seemed as if they were moving through fog. When the scene cleared, Dan saw sky and green grass. He let go of Zinnia and saw 3 dragons sitting together, one smaller than the other 2, and one Zinnia's size, sitting apart. Rhea put a hand on Dan's shoulder. "This is Dan, the veterinarian." She gestured to the dragons. "This is Moran, Zinnia's future mate. This is Kieran, Zinnia's dad, and Thalia, Zinnia's mom." Dan nodded at them. "Pleased to meet you." "We're happy to have you here," Thalia said. Rhea turned slightly and turned to the lone silvery dragon. "And this is Evan." Dan sized him up. His experience in animal behavior told him that Evan was probably nervous, as Nick had said. He smiled and stepped closer. "Pleased to meet you, Evan. I'm Dan. We're going to be the best of friends. After I put my things in the house, we can take time to talk and get to know each other." Evan relaxed. Yes, I want to do that." Once everything was in place, Dan, Rhea, and Nick stepped outside. Dan carried his tablet with him. Rhea turned to the dragons. "It's about dinner time for us." She turned to Dan. "Would you like to have supper with Nick and me?" "Thanks, but I'll take a rain check. I brought food with me." Dan gestured to Evan. "I want to get acquainted with Evan here." Evan straightened up. Moran turned to the other dragons and then to Dan. "We can stay here overnight." Dan faced him. "Thanks, but Evan and I will be fine." "I think you'll want us to stay overnight," Moran said, with a glance toward Evan. "That's a very generous offer, but I'm sure you would prefer to sleep at your home," Dan said. "Tonight we can stay here," Moran said. "We stayed with Rhea and Nick the first night they were here in case they needed something." Dan gestured to Evan. "If I need something, I have Evan here." Moran moved to one side and gestured with his head. "Come over here, human." Dan started walking in that direction. "My name is Dan, and you can call me by my name." "Come over here, Dan," Moran said. When Dan was a few feet away from his head, Moran added, "I have been a dragon longer than you have, and I say you need us to stay overnight." Dan smiled. "I've been a human longer than you have, and I say that we'll be fine." Kieran raised his head. "If you two are done comparing your claws, I'd like to go home and settle down for the evening." "They'll be fine, Moran." Thalia turned to Evan. "Remember, Evan, you need to do what Dan says." "Yes, I promise," Evan said. Zinnia reached out and put a hand on Moran's forearm. Time to go home, Moran. With one backward glance to Dan, Moran followed the other dragons as they walked away with Rhea and Nick. Once they were all out of sight, Dan rubbed his hands together and approached Evan. I have waited for years to meet a dragon just like you, Evan. Me? Yes, you. Would you do something for me? Yes, anything. He opened the patient app on the tablet he was holding and entered Evan's name. Thank you. I want to get more information about you. You don't have to answer my questions if you don't want to. And if anything I do makes you uncomfortable, I want you to tell me so that I can stop. But Thalia said to do what you asked, Evan said. Dan nodded. That's right. When I say that I want you to tell me if you don't like something that I'm asking or what I'm doing, that's doing what Thalia said. Evan paused again, seeming to consider. All right. Good. I wanted to ask if you were able to stand up on your hind legs with your wings spread out. I can do that. Can you hold that pose for a while? You won't fall over? No. Can you do it now? Yes. Evan leaned back, straightened his hind legs, and stood, unfolding his wings to their full length. Dan looked up for a few seconds before realizing he was gaping. Evan straightened his neck and held his head up high. Is this right? Yes. Wow. You are magnificent, Dan said. Evan opened his mouth and drew his lips back in what appeared to be a smile. I'm going to walk around you so that I can see everything, Dan said. Can you hold that pose for a while? Yes, I can. Dan walked slowly around Evan, taking note of limbs, wing attachments, and other anatomical characteristics. Now I'm skipping ahead because Dan takes measurements and listens to Evan's heart and lungs. Then he eats supper and goes to bed, and Evan sleeps nearby. We rejoin the story the next day, and we start out at Rhea and Nick's place. Moran stuck his head through the doorway as Rhea and Nick were eating breakfast. Are you going to check on your friend to see if he's still alive? Rhea put down her fork and picked up her phone. I'll send him a text. She paused while she entered the text. There, I sent him a message. It may take a minute or two for him to respond. She continued to eat. Her phone chimed soon afterwards. She picked it up again. He replied to say good morning with good morning. He's still alive. Nick turned to Moran. Were you expecting a different result? I say we still need to check on him. We will, Rhea said, when we finish breakfast. If you wait outside, we'll join you shortly. 4 dragons were waiting for them when Rhea and Nick walked outside. They strolled over to Dan's house. Dan was not in sight, but Evan was outside. When he spotted them, Evan rocked back and forth with excitement. Oh, you brought me the best human? He said I was magnificent. Moran turned to Zinnia and trilled something in the dragon language. Zinnia looked at him but did not respond. Dan came out of the house and faced them. Good morning. Nice to see everyone again. How was your evening? Nick asked. Fine, no problems. Evan swung his head toward the group. I'm going to find breakfast now. Evan flew away. Moran swung his head in Dan's direction. Did he sleep with you in your house? Yes. Probably wanted to make sure you didn't run off, Moran said. I'm not running off, Dan said. Moran swung his head in the direction of Evan's retreating form. Magnificent? Dan turned to him. Yes. No missing or broken scales. Wings are fully intact and working. He has the full use of all his limbs. Eyes and ears are clear. No missing or broken teeth. Gums in good shape. Heartbeat strong. Lungs strong. A dragon in excellent health and in full possession of his faculties. Moran told something to Zinnia again. That's the second time you said that, Moran, Dan said. Care to translate for us? Moran made a grumbling sound in his throat and lowered his head. Zinnia turned from Moran to Dan. He said that humans are easily impressed. Perhaps that's because dragons are impressive creatures, Dan said. That's the end of the reading, and I do have a giveaway. It's sort of a prequel to this, although it's a children's chapter book. So be sure and sign up for the giveaway if you feel like it. Thank you.